My name is Matthew Hughes, as you can see on there. These are my contact details. If you expected much else on the slide deck, then there isn't anything. It is pure demo. I'll tell you where I thought this would go. I used to work for a school, and I came to this conference 2 years ago, and when I hit the conference, I learned that actually there's a lot of sessions that are focused at enterprise customers. So they talk about the different roles you get in SharePoint, IT Pro and all that kind of thing. And I sat there in my environment, and I was the SharePoint guy. So I did everything for architecture, as well as changing passwords and that kind of thing. So it was kind of a situation where I haven't really got anybody else to go to. So what I thought was it would be a good idea to show people, if you're that person in that environment, and you're given the task to make things look a bit different, where do we go, how do we create it, and more to the point, not have it as a canned sort of, this is my master page, this is stage 1, this is stage 2, this is stage 3, let's just give it a go. So this could go really bad, or it could go really good, but because it's a community track, I'm prepared to just sort of risk it and see how we get on. So firstly, I'll just jump into, I'm probably going to sit down for most of it, so if you can't hear me, just shout, Matt, speak up a bit. I've also not got a laptop, so I'm working on the VMs we've got here, so if anything goes wrong, I'll blame the company I now work for. Right, so the first things first, you get SharePoint, you get the v4.master, which is the first thing you look at, and you think, where do I start? So a good place to start is, probably should have loaded it up first, is Coplex. So Randy Driscoll created this nice starter master page, and the good thing about it is if you look at the master page here, it kind of looks very similar to the out the box, but there's certain things that he's added in there, and most importantly, when we go into the master page, there's comments. It's something that Microsoft forgot about, I think, when they created their master pages. The thing they say is best practice to comment everything, but they forgot to do it. So Randy's done that for them. And the best part about it is you don't really need to know a lot about all the controls and what they do then. You can just have a go. And when you load the page, and this is the second sort of tip, when you load the page and you open IE Developer Toolbar, which is F12, who here uses SharePoint Designer already? Excellent. Everybody, great. Right, so presumably you've used Developer Tools F12, or if you use Firefox as well, you've got the Developer Toolbar, I think, and there's various other alternatives. Right, so if you go and you pick something, I apologise for the screen res because it's really low, but you can see that all the classes have got those comments above them. So you've got the colour coding from the Developer Toolbar anyway, but then you've got the comments, so you can sort of see where they are and what they're doing, and also it allows you to search within the master page if you want to change a particular thing or move it around, which I'll show you when we get to that. So I've got an end game, if you like, which is this page. It's not the most inspiring. As I said, I was the only guy there. I'm not a graphic designer, but it looks a bit better than it does out of the box. Again, there's a few things that don't quite work. It's made for a publishing site. This is a team site, and the other part to it is that if you want a fully fledged branded site, you're going to go and pay somebody, and they'll do all the little bits. If you was at Kathy's session, she was talking about how you plan everything and how it looks in all the different browsers. Well, I was it was a school, couldn't really afford to pay get somebody to do all those little bits. And she also said about version 1, 2 and 3, well, that's the point. Version 1 was getting it to look like this, so we had the sort of our corporate brand. Although it's a school, it's not a corporate in that sense, but it still has the look and feel that we wanted, that we had on the website, that we had on our letterheads and that kind of thing. So we've got the footer there. So what we're going to try and do in 45 minutes, is insert a header. You can't see it on this res, but there is a little bit of a green bar there, so it is centered. We're going to add the footer with the image, the background colours for these, and also we may, if we get time, hide the ribbon as well. So on a publishing site, you get your anonymous users, and they get there and they don't want to see the ribbon. I've still seen a lot of public-facing websites now, SharePoint 2010 public-facing websites, that you can still see the ribbon, and I don't see the point if you're an anonymous user, unless you're going to log in. But even then, you can move that control out of the ribbon and just get rid of that completely. Yeah. Okay. Right. So if we go back to our master page. The first thing we want to do is center the content. So you've got all the comments. So we know what bits we need to find. At the minute we've got. Let me close that. At the minute we've got the ribbon at the top. We've got a content area which is scrolling here in a strange way. Again, not what normal people will expect. I think when they go to a website, they expect the whole scroll bar. So we need to find the two classes or IDs that all falls under. We've got the begin ribbon here, so let's just add something. I've missed a slight bit. Right, the first thing is adding some CSS. That would be very useful. So we'll go divisions, sales, style library, CK. So we need to link some CSS first. So we're going to override the styles. Again, if you was in Kathy's session, she talked about your themes, she talked about overriding the CSS, and she talked about master pages. So we're going to go the whole hog and do the master page and the CSS. So we need to have some CSS to link to, and that's what that little bit of code did there. Right, so we've got the link, and let's see if we can't center that content. So we've got S4 ribbon row. At the minute, we can see here S4 ribbon row. It's not really got any centering or anything on it at the minute, so it's maximised. You've got a width of 100% there as well. So if we go to the CSS, S4 ribbon row. I do max width 960. Let's make it a bit smaller than that actually. I do max widths. It's not supported in all browsers, I don't think. And if you're looking for best practice, I'm sure there's other ways to do this. I'm not going to say this is the best practice. This is the way I did it on this particular site. I think I saved that. Okay, so we can see something's happening here. We've got a width there, but the content looks out of place, so we need to do something with that. On my blog, I've got all this. I've got a branding series, and it's got all this kind of information in it. So if I go through things a little quick, then you can have a look there, which I'll put on again at the end. So we're looking for the main content. So you'd expect that Randy's somewhere put it somewhere that there is main content. And you've got this workspace here, and you've got content div, and I think we can just move that content area. We should do that as it's the style above it, so let's try that for now. Right, so again, fairly straightforward. We've applied the same styles as the ribbon row because we want it to all be centered the same. You can break that out and make it into two separate bits of code if you like, but there's no real point at this moment in time. In the other example, we had a logo at the top and we had an area where the navigation sits, so we may as well have a go at that. We'll sort out a background and things for the actual site in a second. In fact, let's do that. So we'll put a background colour there. So we've got a background colour there. Not quite what we expected. So we need to give the main content area a background colour as well. You'll notice that the ribbon row hasn't changed. Although we've just put a background colour of white on the ribbon, it hasn't changed. In the ribbon there's an image applied to it, so you have to override the image as well. But I'm not going to do that for the moment. Okay, so we want to put an area at the top of the whole content really. So if we go to where we began at the beginning of the ribbon, we'll put a header div in there. Switch over. Okay, so I've moved the content down a bit. Any questions so far? Okay, out of you guys, who are actual designers? That's what you spend all your day doing. Okay, and who just wants to have a think about doing some branding, wants to have a tinker around? Okay, good. So hopefully this is useful for you. I'm not an expert, as I said. I was on my own, so this is just the way I thought to do it. If you're an IT pro or something in your environment and you've got a dev practice area that you can have a go at this, then that's fine. I wouldn't recommend doing it in production whilst people are using it. I tend to find it a bit odd when things are moving around. It's kind of an obvious point, but I've seen people do it. Right, so let's give the header a background colour just to make it look a bit different. Okay, so you can see that we need to centre that header, otherwise it'll look a bit strange. I need to do the same thing there. No. Pardon? Alright. Thanks. I said this could go horribly wrong. I like the interaction though. It's very good, thanks. Right. Okay, so in the master page, Randy's given us a footer, which is this copyright site name at the bottom, and he's also given us a link back to the home page with this sales image. Obviously it looks a bit strange because there is no image there to use, so we need to find that. So let's use what I was saying before about using the developer toolbar, see if we can't find that content. So you can see there's a image here. You can't really see. You can see. So what we could do is copy this bit of text here, go into our master page, find it, and then we know we're in the right sort of area. So you don't, again, as I said, you don't really need to know anything about the controls or what they're doing. You can just use the text to find it and then modify it or break it, as sometimes is the case. In fact, we'll do that there. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Okay, I'll do it in the code then. I think that's it. Okay, so I've got my logo. I think in SharePoint you can change the logo. You've got some options in there to change it. It's nice, but you tend to see a lot of SharePoint out the box with just a logo there, and then that's the branding done. Well, I'd like to think that it would make a bit more effort to do that kind of thing. And apologies if that's how your SharePoint environment is at the moment. It's a start. Right, so we need to move that code out of that block, because at the minute it's sitting there in the content, and we want to take it and move it above the ribbon. So highlight the whole block, take it out of there, and then we need to go back to where it said beginning of the ribbon, begin ribbon, and then probably inside that header that we created is a logical place to put it. Okay, so I need to set my background to white, because the orange was just to show you, really. But yeah, right. There's one thing. When Kathy was talking, I keep referring to Kathy's session, so sorry if you've not been to it. But she was talking about when you're planning your site and you drill down into the specific parts of it. When you're doing it this way, and it's kind of just basically having a go, there's certain points where you get to and you think, oh, there's something not quite right. And a great example is what I've just done, which hopefully we'll be able to see if I can add something. Let's go here. Right, so here's the example. So you get the dialog box that appears, and in the CSS, Microsoft has given us a nice class called S4 not DLG, not dialog, I guess. So what that does is anything that sits within that class, it takes out of the dialog box. If you completely remove that S4 not DLG, that dialog box would be the whole master page. So it just shrinks it all down. But the problem is that you don't get the scroll bar there either. So if you make that mistake, you've just got white space. And so it's easy when you're creating your master page to do that, and the user presses add new, and it is just white space, and you think, what's going on? So that's a little trick, and you can do the highlight and drag thing that I just did there, which until I found that out, that was my fix. I said just highlight it and drag it, it'll be fine. So we can just add that class on to the end of the div. I actually used that fix for about a month. I had nice employers. Right. So it's gone now, yep. So fixed. And that's a fair comment as well, is a lot of the times, because it was me on my own, and I'm sort of teaching myself, or Google and blogs were teaching me, you don't spot all these things all the time. You can't be expected to learn all these things. You've been given a job that you've got to do by yesterday, so you're trying to power away. But there's a lot of good information out there. Not so much on branding now. In 2007, you had Heather somethings, Solomon's, thanks. I always get the two Heathers mixed up. You had Heather Solomon's CSS thing, which was just fantastic. But there isn't anything really like that out there at the moment. I think I've seen something similar. I think Mark Anderson's got something on his blog, but it's not as complete as Heather's was. I think there's a book as well, SharePoint Branding and UI Design, which is Randy sort of co-authored that, I think. So that's a useful book to get. Right, so digress slightly, but it's important to think about the different sites, the different views you get on your site. So if you've got a team site and a wiki site or a blog site, everything's going to change, and your CSS file is eventually going to be huge. But if you start from a team site, the first page you're looking at, you're in a good place, really. What we didn't have is we didn't have the sidebar. So we've got this quick launch, and we want to get rid of that. So I'm going to use the easy way to get rid of it. Easy if you know how. Which is to find out what it's called. So we've got quick launch there. S for quick launch. They give these nice names to things, so you just kind of hazard a guess. The good thing about IE toolbar is you can turn the styles off, sort of on the fly, which is useful if you do something really bad and you want to just turn it off to check, or if you've got colours. So let's look at the body. Body container. Bad example. Right, background colour white. Yeah, so if we wanted to change that to black, it applies it straight away. So CSS, it's client-side code, so you can just edit it, and it doesn't really affect anybody. So if you were looking to make changes and not affect the rest of the business, then using the developer toolbar sort of on your own machine, if you was to do it in production, which you shouldn't do. Right, so refresh and it's back to normal. Right, so quick launch. We're going to hide that. Not sure if it was a class or a div ID. Yep.
Wouldn't it be wiser to just remove it from the master page?
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah.
Because it won't get rendered, so the page will be faster.
Yeah, that's fine. But then there might be times where you want to have it there, and have some tricks to bring it back. Yeah, so, as I said, what I'm doing is probably not always the best way to do it. I'm just giving you examples. It's nice to see that you can just hide things like that if you need to. Yeah, I know it adds to the page load and that kind of thing. There's a good thing that I'll post on my blog later on, where there's a really low. It's a page that has a low load time, short load time, I should say. But I'll put that on the blog afterwards as well. So yeah, you're right. You can just hide it if you want. You can take the tick out the options in the site settings. Right, so we'll look at the footer. Although we've also got content here that's now looking odd because it's centered there, and we've hidden the quick launch, but we've got that content and it's not quite where we need it to be. Right. So I'm going to stick with my first instinct and go with footer, because I can't remember where that other bit is. Right, so yeah, I'll get there in a second. So we've got the footer here. The footer sits inside the body container at the moment. So we need to break that out of there, and we need to give it its own background colour, maybe a bit of padding. I think it was orange before. So we can find the control again like we did before with IE toolbar, or we can just look for the nicely commented code there and remove it. Has anybody tried removing a control and seen what happens to the page? Yeah, it breaks. I think it breaks gracefully though, which is nice. Right, so let's... What he doesn't do is he doesn't give that div a class or an ID, so we need to give it its own ID, so we'll add one there. Call it CK footer for a change. Right, so we've got our footer, still not in the right place. This is where you do the fiddly stuff. We'll move it out of there. Okay, it's out of there. Okay, we've got the scroll bar that is in the place you don't expect it, unless you're using the ribbon, has hidden it because there's an auto setting on the scroll bar. This is definitely the bit where I thought it might go wrong, because I actually found the answer to this on Google and haven't tested it for about 6 months. So have a go at getting rid of it. I think in the master page there is something at the top where he talks about the scroll bar. Right here, so you've got hide body scrolling. So I think if we take that out, we've got the body scrolling. Not quite right, still something missing there. But at least we can see the footer, that's a good sign. So let's give the footer a width like we did before. Okay, we've got width. Done that one. Right, okay, I'll just leave the width there. So it's sitting in the right place. It's got a width at the moment, and we need to still get rid of this extra scroll bar. The first way I did it, when I was trying to figure this out, was it was a bit of a cheating way, in that there's a class called S4 workspace, so I just renamed the class. Makes sense, right? Because then the styles don't get applied to it. Doesn't really work too well, that. So what I thought I'd do is I'll actually try and find the real way to do it. Leave that there, because it's obviously doing a lot of stuff anyway. And the way I did it, in fact, got the code in here, not that one. You can see my nicely commented code, those 2 comments. I think it's that one. Maybe not that one. It breaks a few things, that. Although actually I do think that's right. Okay, rather than halt it while I troubleshoot, we'll move on. Right, so we're getting there slowly but surely. If we just go back to the page that we should be getting to see where we are. Okay, we've got a header, it's not in the right place, or the header image isn't in the right place. It's there though. We've got a footer, Doesn't quite look the same. It's there though. We can go ahead and add that image. It's not really exciting, that bit. Or we can move the navigation. So at the moment, let's go back to. At the moment, the navigation falls underneath the ribbon. So again, we need to move that out of there. We can find the navigation, but I think it's pretty well documented in the master page as well. S4TN. You get to know these class names and IDs really well, dream about them and all sorts. If you're that way inclined. But. So let's search for S4TN. Please tell me I've not just done something bad. Right, so S4TN here, and we've got this top navigation area. The thing to bear in mind when you're moving things is just to check that you're moving the right control. You might, although it's commented, you might miss a bit that you've got to move with it. So when I was talking before about anonymous users hitting the page and you hide the ribbon, well, in the ribbon is the login box. So if you've got your content editor that needs to come and edit the website, when you hide the ribbon with the login box, it's really difficult for them to log in. So you can either give them one of the fixes, which is a path to an application page or something, so it asks them to log in, which is not the nicest fix, or you can just move that control. So you get used to what the controls are called and where they are, but it's worth just checking that you're moving everything at the right time. So top navigation area, it's got a data source, this navigation, this data source here. So I can see that I can see they fit in the same div as well, so I should probably move all of that. So if I just move this, just took that div as well, it's quite easy to do that, and then you start breaking stuff because your divs are not closed properly. So check you get all your nesting and everything there. So we've got a top navigation. We talked a second ago about... Oh, I expected it to break then. Oh, that's fine. Okay. Top navigation. So we're going to put it above the ribbon, which is how we have it in the page. We want it above the ribbon, but below the... Above the ribbon and then in the header. Let's go there. Let's try that. It doesn't quite look right there, does it? It's because... let's just do this bit first. Not quite sure why that's happening. Yeah, I was thinking maybe it was the height, but I don't think it. Yeah, you would have thought that. Okay, well, you could be right. I like that. Maybe we should all get behind and we should all do like little bits at a time. That'd be great. Like that participation. Right, so. Thanks to our friend here, we've got our navigation in the header. Let's go back to here. See what we're missing. So we've also got the search and we've got the search in its own little area there at the top. Now, who here likes the folder breadcrumb thing that they did in 2010? Does that make any sense to anybody? Does anybody actually use that little folder? You know what I'm talking about? Let's go back here. This little thing? Yeah, I just don't get it. I don't know why it's there.
It's good, but you need to flatten it like the old moss one, which you can do with CSS, but yeah, it's pretty useful.
Yeah, it's just weird. I thought the breadcrumb, like millions of web pages use, was perfectly fine in 2007. There's not a lot you can say is perfectly fine, but I think that was it. So, yeah, so they broke it. So, yeah, what I did in the in my own master page is I basically put the old one back. So I'll do that if I can find the code for it. Let's try this. Let's put it there. Let's see what happens. See, when I said I wasn't a designer, my attention to detail isn't like a designer, you see. No, I missed the closing div, you're right. So you can just see there. Well, you couldn't until I highlight it, but it's there. So that's my new breadcrumb. Not very exciting because there's not really any subsites or anything. So we'll just say it's there for now. We're happy that it's there. We'll give it a meaningful name. TK. Very meaningful. And then we'll give it some styling as well. I'm sure there's best practices around CSS files about how you're supposed to put all the classes. Are they supposed to match up with the master page or not? I've not seen one that really follows any kind of sensible order. So I'm not alone in making it a bit strange.
There's something like a region CSS file.
Pardon?
Like a region to collapse.
What, like a Visual Studio thing where you collapse it all? Not in SharePoint Designer.
You can close the curly braces.
Yeah, so you can, and you can in some browsers as well, I think, when you look at the source code. But Designers, it's not Visual Studio, is it? Let's be fair. So CK breadcrumb. So we'll give that some. No, you won't. We'll give that some background colour. Orange. Whoop. Right, so it's there. Again, it looks a bit odd, but we can work with it. So we've got a class within. So this sitemap path, I think it's just a normal .NET thing. It's not anything to do with SharePoint as such. I just remembered it from developing years ago. So it's got classes for the styles within that as well. So you can give it some some styles, and you'll make it like the version that I had before. We were a bit short for time, so I'm not going to drill down into everything. So actually, by the time we've finished, it won't look anything like the thing that I'm showing you in the end. But we're getting there. It's not bad for half an hour, really, but... Right, let's have a look where we were then. Oh, in fact, we've got search as well. I created the breadcrumb, but we've got search that sort of sits in our content here. So when Randy created the master page, I think he got all the controls, gave them all names, but didn't really put them in any obvious order. It kind of makes sense, but there's certain things you wouldn't want within your content areas. So that's why we're having to move them away. But it's nicer that it's in that order because you spot it straight away. That shouldn't be there. There's other things in, not in this image that I've got, but you've got your tags and things as well that you can move about. It's not installed on the image, so we won't see any of that. But he also makes those tags. You know, you've got the big I like it buttons. They're huge. He puts smaller ones in as well, so that's nice to know. Right, I'm in the wrong one. So let's find the search and move it out of the way. So you've got the page editing status bar. I think that's the bar that's when you go edit and it says this is checked out. I can't show you that because I'm not going to check anything out. But we could move that as well above, or we could hide it, or whatever you want to do. So we're going to move search. Little out of place again, so we can move that around a bit. Right, so search, we've not got an ID for that either. So at the moment it's hidden from the dialog box, but we need to give it something else. UK search. Let's put it here. So what I've done actually in my example is I've given it a background colour. Let's say orange. In fact, I've done exactly the same as I've done in the breadcrumb. I think we move the breadcrumb out of the way, so we'll do that for now. Yeah, still doesn't look quite right. I think I cheated a little bit. I did do a flat, yeah. But does anybody use the minus on the margins? I always find that's really useful to move things where they shouldn't be. You can do that now. Let's get rid of that bit of code. Let's float it, why not?
You could also define the CK search again.
Pardon?
You just removed.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
You don't need to redefine the style completely again.
Yes. Yeah, because essentially that's what we're doing anyway, because we're overriding core. So we don't really need to do what I've just done there, but habit. It shouldn't move. Yeah, it's broke quite nicely.
Put it clear on the CK breadcrumb.
So what when I created the master page, it took me quite some time. I didn't do it in 45 minutes. So there's a lot of things where, like that, I probably sat at home and thought, oh, I broke it again. What am I going to do? You know, you try and figure these things out. I'm not a CSS expert. I don't really have reference guides or anything like that. I'm sure some of the designers have got libraries full of all these wonderful books, but Google is my friend in that point, which I think is in my slide deck as well. So we'd need to put a width on that, I think. Okay. So if I go to the other master page, I can see how I've done that, and then maybe it won't look so broken. Right, so as we've got 10 minutes, actually, it might be worth mentioning I was talking about the ribbon and hiding it from anonymous users. This time last year, I didn't know what SP security trim control was. Some people might laugh, or at least be laughing inside, because, you should know what that is. But I used this method, this ASP login view, because again, from programming days, ASP login view made more sense for me to use. So I basically have, it's not in that bit. Well, I've basically, for anonymous users, I just hid the ribbon completely. So like you were saying before, it still renders it and everything, but I just hid it out of the way. And the downside to that as well is that if you go into the CSS and modify it yourself, if it's just hidden, you can unhide it. So using SP security trim control, it does it properly, basically. So you don't have permission to see it, you don't see it. You can't unhide it, you just don't see it. So that's why that's commented out. It's probably because I should have fixed that. There is a div that gives it that. I think there's a padding there. Yeah. So as I've been doing this, and we've sort of just had a go while we're here, got nothing better to do. There's various bits that I've done really badly wrong there, but the point was not to say this is the best way to go and do it. The point was to say this is how you can do it. Have a go, see that I can do it, so you must be able to do it, and then go and find the best ways. And on my blog, the series that I've got, I actually do follow what I actually did and give all the proper classes and everything, and you can download that master page and the CSS for it. So I'm not just sort of saying have a go, forget about the session, and there's stuff you can go and use after the session if you like. Is it 4 this finishes? Is that right? Right, okay, well, I'll say I'm going to stop there. Have we got any questions? Yeah.
You've done your themes, your master page, and your CSS.
Yeah.
Do you have to go any further? Do you have to start on any web part elements, or have the changes you've made broken any web part elements?
Web parts get IDs, unique IDs. So the way I did it was say there was a maximum amount of web parts we were going to have in a page, so it was like 10. I used the unique IDs for 1 to 10, and then give them different styles. Or I like in here, how we've got the classes. I wonder if I've got the code actually for some of it.
You can use a control adapter to restyle all the
Here we go. Yeah, exactly what he said. Obviously knows more about that part than I do. Or I think this is the how it comes out in the end when it's rendered. This is what it looks like. So that's what I used. You see they've got the little 2, 5, 7. So it's like the alternate web parts. Again, it is going to change, and if you've got more, then you could end up doing loads of code for that for the next 200. I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but I just wanted to. I knew there was only going to be a certain amount, and I just wanted to drill down to those, so I just did that. But if you were going to do it in an enterprise environment, you'd never do it that way. It is a way. With anything, if it's rendered and it's got a class or an ID, then you can change it as much as you like, can't you? So you've just got to make sure that you use the developer toolbar, see what classes are applied, and just override them. The other thing that I found when doing the master page is that before Randy released this one is the after core CSS in the code. So before I added my CSS registration, or I probably did it the old way, but I added my code and some of it wasn't applying, and it was because the core was loading after my code was loading. So I was overriding it, and then it was overriding my code. So that after core is worth noting. If you don't use the Randy's master page, then make sure you've got that in there. Any other questions?
Maybe goes a bit further. When it comes to users using the rich text editor on publishing pages, we have these nice drop downs with these headings and captions and everything styles and HTML styles. So did you find a way how to change these, well, not exactly changing the existing styles, but adding ones or removing ones without going to the core file?
Yeah, you just override them. So you find out what the class is called.
How to remove stuff?
Removing it from the rich text editor.
From the rich text drop down, yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine that you'd need some sort of development work to get rid of things out of the rich text editor, yeah, or core. But I wouldn't go to core because then you're unsupported, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you could get a solution. I'm sure that would just take those things out, and then you're still supported. Yeah. Any other questions?
Page load time on SharePoint can be pretty bad.
Fairly high, yeah.
You said you've done a series whereby you've created a much lighter page.
No, somebody else has got a solution actually that it has a really light front page that is presented to the users, but you can go in and edit pages and you get the full set of all the controls that SharePoint gives. I think that we were looking at using that for the combined knowledge site, but you're relying on a WFP from somebody else, and I'm not really too comfortable with doing that for something like that.
Do you know where the major part of that bloat was?
The major...
the slowdown in terms of...
It's everything that's in the page that's getting rendered. There is an absolute ton of stuff, but it's all required because, as I said at the start, if you've ever taken a control out, it breaks things. So the way they've done it is by almost linking to the content from this light page, and then displaying it in the way that's nice and not too heavy on it in the end. I'll link to that though on the blog.
When, if ever, should you use themes?
Pardon? When, if ever?
Should you use themes?
If you haven't got time to do any master page or CSS stuff, use themes. Other than that, I really can't be that positive about themes, and I really don't see the benefit. I think Kathy was saying the same thing in our session. You're creating them in PowerPoint or something. I just don't see the point. And you can override them in the CSS and not let people do that anyway. So if you're going to take the effort to go and create your own CSS and master pages, then don't bother with themes. I'm sure Microsoft would probably say themes was our best thing, best thing to do. So you can't say that you can't use them, but that's just my opinion. Yeah, you can have the CSS in the options. So that, there's the 3 different ways. There's the themes, alternate CSS, which is fairly straightforward, or going the full whole hog and doing your own master page and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so you can create your own CSS class, define your own class name, and then the first level in the themes.
Yeah. So you do the replace, the replace colour thing.
Colour themes for your own CSS style.
Yeah. Any other questions? I can tell you're so impressed that in 45 minutes we've got to this broken master page. But I said it might work, I said it might not work, but we have got some of the way. We've got a footer, and the main point is, things to take away there was, for small businesses, it is fairly straightforward. You don't have to go and spend thousands of pounds doing it if you just want small changes. But I know there's some consultants in the room that would rather you didn't do that. if you're through an enterprise, I put a little fiddly there. Well, when your job's on the stake, when your job's on the line, you're not really going to risk it, are you? You'd rather get it done properly and go the full whole hog. But like I say, I was in a school and branding really wasn't necessary according to my boss, so I just thought it was a nice side project to have a go at. You can make big changes, so changing the layout of things is fairly straightforward, and that was the main point, is that we've got this fluid 100% width layout, and it was giving it some kind of fixed width and just changing how things look that way. I developer toolbar is your friend, Google is your friend, the master is your friend, and of course I'm your friend. So what more do you need in life? Thank you very much.